everywhere you look. For miles and miles, it was just orchards of cherry trees, apricot trees, and prune trees. It was just such a wonderful time there.
Throughout the world, wherever you go, Sunsweet prunes contribute to the enjoyment and health of everyone.
But gradually, the valley is transformed. For Cold War industries, like missiles and aviation,
industrial opportunities abound in the Valley of Heart's Delight. Mild climate.
And to build all that hardware, companies bring in thousands of engineers whose enthusiasm for making things proves contagious, especially for their kids, some of whom are about to shake up the world.
A lot of the kids on my block, maybe half of them, had parents that were engineers. My father was an electrical engineer, and he took me to work one day, and I liked what he did and thought, wow, I would like to be an engineer someday. And I discovered a journal in the hall closet, and it had an article telling how ones and zeros made up numbers in computers and how you could add them or subtract them, kind of like the way we do with our numbers. And I said, wow, I practiced on paper, and I said, wow, I learned how to do that. And I told myself inside at a very young age, computers are going to be the most fascinating thing in my life. It's going to be my passion for life.
To build his own computer, Wozniak wants tiny electronic parts called transistors that work as amplifiers or switches, but they're not cheap. He gets some timely help from the Polaris missile, which relies on transistors, and is made at the Lockheed factory where his father works.
My father had connections there with the silicon companies, and he got a donation of 400 cosmetic reject transistors.
Parts that enable the precocious 8th grader to get his start.
And if I hadn't been here in Silicon Valley, it just wouldn't have happened. I would have been reading about things in magazines, maybe educating myself, maybe knowing how to do it, but I was really close to the source.
Wozniak's friend from nearby Los Altos, Steve Jobs, also learns electronics from his dad, Paul Jobs, a machinist. Jobs spends his free time with Wozniak, talking about their favorite subject, computers. In 1975, they joined the Homebrew Computer Club, a magnet for electronics obsessives.
The Valley is so rich in engineering, particularly aerospace engineering at that time, that a club can form in which people can make hobbyist computers using technologies that are from the companies all around them.
You know, if you want to know what's going to happen in 5 years, you don't look in the mainstream, you look at the fringe. And the fringe back in 1975 was the Homebrew Computer Club. Everybody that was interested in building computers was at that meeting. And Woz and I always had the coolest stuff there.
At the club, Wozniak shows off a computer he's built. He and Jobs will soon name it the Apple I. The two hobbyists are also inspired by the counterculture in San Francisco, a movement that rejects the way computers are being used by the government and the military.
I wanted to be a part of this revolution. The word revolution itself struck me so deeply. I just wanted to change things from horrible Vietnam War type days and everything. I wanted to be a part of it. That's one of the reasons I developed my computer. I wanted to help that revolution go forward.
Steve Jobs is also a rebel. He embraces Zen Buddhism, listens to Bob Dylan, and feels his life has been changed by LSD.
I don't remember how the subject came up, but at one point he turned to me and he said, you know, LSD is one of the 2 or 3 most significant things that I've ever experienced.
Non-traditional experiences have helped greatly in doing the things that I've tried to do in the last 10 years. Hitchhiking around the country, or bicycling across Canada, or heading off to the Himalayas, or going to sit in a monastery in Kyoto.
Inspired by these new ways of thinking, in 1976, Jobs and Wozniak start the company whose creations will one day change billions of lives.
So they formed Apple Computer, and they set up shop in Jobs' father's garage, and I went to work there. And we were going to create computers and sell them to people who wanted them.
Soon, A local hobbyist shop orders 50 Apple I's. And they get built in the garage. A Silicon Valley tradition that dates back to the 1930s. The HP 35, introduced in 1972, the first handheld scientific calculator. One of the young engineers who works on it, before he starts Apple, is Steve Wozniak.
When we started, our calculator cost $400. The HP 35, that's, figure $2,000 today at least. Within 5 years, no scientist or engineer would ever want a $10 slide rule ever again. And why was that product so great? Bill Hewlett wanted it for himself, even though it was a money loser. They figured they'd only sell 5,000 and it was going to be a huge loss.
Hewlett's guess is way off. All told, HP winds up selling more than 300,000 of the calculators.
It was the most innovative company in the world at the time, and Hewlett-Packard was easily the most enlightened company of its era, too. Flexi time and stock options and profit sharing, Friday afternoon beer bus, all of those things were invented by Hewlett-Packard.
We respect the people. Our success is going to be dependent upon how well these people do their job. They're entitled to a share of the profits.
Hewlett and Packard treat employees well. They don't even mind if employees leave HP for other companies.
Bill told me, he said, it's okay to change your job. Labor mobility is a good thing. You spread knowledge this way. It's okay to change your job. Then he said it's okay to fail. Now, not too often, he said, but it's okay to fail. And I think this was an attitude from the beginning. You could be experimental. You could try something new, and if it didn't work, you try something else. You could start over.
These new attitudes about business inspire people in the Valley.
Like Facebook. Zuckerberg is walking down the street and he runs into Sean Parker just at random on the sidewalk because Sean Parker has just been kicked out of his girlfriend's house.
It's 2004, and Parker, only 24, is hailed as a visionary. He co-founded Napster, the notorious website that gave music away for free. Well connected in the Valley, he knows just the kind of people the ambitious Harvard sophomore needs to meet.
Mark Zuckerberg starts Facebook in Boston, but he moves it to Silicon Valley. Why? To access the talent.
Zuckerberg had come here just with this sort of vague idea that Silicon Valley was the place to be, and Parker was here already because he already knew Silicon Valley was the place to be, and so because they both thought that, they bumped into each other.
Parker urges Zuckerberg not to go back to Harvard, helps him open a bank account, and introduces him to people with the knowledge and money to help him.
They were able to draw on all of the ecosystem. All of these people brought their Rolodexes and relationships in to help Facebook grow as fast as it could. Without that ecosystem, which does not exist in Boston, Facebook would not have grown as quickly.
Silicon Valley is just this petri dish of all of these people together in proximity. You just are in a place where everyone around you is part of this larger project.
I was asked to write an article for Electronics magazine. They wanted me to predict what was going to happen in the next 10 years in the electronic component business.
So Moore starts looking and notices that each year, circuits have twice as many transistors as they did the year before.
So I made the wild prediction that we'd continue to double in complexity every year for the next 10 years. We'd go from 60 components to 60,000, a 1,000-fold expansion during this time.
But you ask, who cares how many transistors can be squeezed into tiny places you can't see? Well, let me assure you, it is one of the most significant ideas of our time.
Moore's prediction of an exponential increase in the number of transistors on a silicon chip becomes known as Moore's Law.
Moore's Law is the most extraordinary discovery because it shows that for the first time in human history, we can develop things, we can innovate things at an ever faster speed.
Moore's Law guaranteed that Silicon Valley would have a huge economic rise. You could create so much more product for the same money every year than the year before. That was going to lead to 50, 60 years of incredible growth.
Current integrated circuits utilize up to 16 billion transistors on the little circuit. Far beyond anything I ever would have thought possible. But it's still a manifestation of the progress of Moore's Law.
Jan Koum is born and raised in Ukraine.
For me, I used abacus in school because we didn't even have calculators. I remember seeing my first computer. I was like, wow. I mean, to me, it was just fascinating. It was like this whole new world.
In 1992, when he is 16, Koum and his mother emigrate to California. His father stays behind. Relatives help them rent a cheap apartment, which by chance is in Mountain View, in Silicon Valley.
The first 5-6 years of living in the United States were tough. We lived in public housing. We had to have financial aid, and we had food stamps. And it's tough on many levels. It's definitely not easy.
Koum finishes high school and pursues his interest in computers at a local state college. But a chance encounter leads him to a job on the network security team at Yahoo, where he benefits from a long-standing Valley perk.
The recruiter who was hiring me, he explained to me this amazing concept of stock options, which I knew nothing about. And I remember sitting in a conference room in Yahoo and we were talking about me joining the company. He was telling me, look, if you work part-time, we can't give you stock options. And I was thinking to myself, what are stock options and why do I want them?
At Yahoo, Koum makes a friend, Brian Acton, who helps him through times of hardship. The death of his father back in Ukraine, and when he's 24, the death of his mother. Koum and Acton stay at Yahoo until 2007, and then cash in their stock options and leave.
I really wanted to do something myself. I just didn't know what yet.
And then in 2009, he gets an idea.
It started with me buying an iPhone.
Koum finds himself annoyed that he is missing calls from friends when he's at the gym. So he creates an app that people can use to let their friends know if they are busy or free. He calls it WhatsApp and starts a business to sell it. Apple agrees to offer it in its App Store.
And that was such a big moment because it was a feeling of achievement. It's like, I've done it. I've built something with my own hands, and now anybody in the world who has an iPhone can use what I've built. That feeling of achievement, there's no way to describe it. And we were so happy when it launched, and we were so disappointed when nobody used it.
But Koum doesn't give up. He retools WhatsApp for a market where he sees room to compete. Text messaging.
It was expensive. To send a message to somebody in another country, to send a picture to somebody in another country over SMS was very expensive.
So Koum bypasses the SMS networks of the private phone companies.
We were able to use internet, just like Google uses internet, like Netflix, like all of the companies.
By switching from SMS to the internet, WhatsApp can offer unlimited global service for about $1 a year.
And it took off. And that was it. It was like the light went on.
Launching in the summer of 2009, WhatsApp 2.0 soon gains millions of users all over the world. Brian Acton joins Koum in running the company. And soon, Sequoia Capital, a leading investment firm in the Valley, wants to talk.
When we intersected, they were at about 8 million active users. Over half the people that had downloaded WhatsApp were using it every day. We talk about that as daily active usage. To have a daily active usage rate of 50% or better was astonishing.
Sequoia ultimately invests nearly $60 million in WhatsApp.
We were growing really fast, and our users kept coming back and using our product.
WhatsApp was now larger than Twitter in terms of the number of consumers that are interacting with the service on a daily or monthly basis.
By 2012, the white-hot growth of WhatsApp is commanding the attention of Mark Zuckerberg.
Now what's the big threat to Facebook? Instagram, WhatsApp, these new social networks appearing that threaten Facebook. What has Facebook done? They'll spend billions for WhatsApp just to get that thing inside their tent.
In 2014, Zuckerberg makes an offer.
Facebook just bought WhatsApp for a stunning $19 billion deal.
It's one of the richest deals in Valley history.
Facebook's largest buy ever.
On its $60 million investment, Sequoia earns some $3 billion. And Coombs signs the contract on the door of the building in Mountain View where he used to get his food stamps. Today, WhatsApp is used by more than 1 billion people.
There is absolutely no chance I could have built WhatsApp outside of Silicon Valley. No chance. This place is magical.